So today we are going to talk about blasphemy law in Pakistan, and Saba Gul will tell us about this controversial law. Yeah?
Yeah.
So please tell us about this law history and practice. Yeah.
So yeah, you said it very right that it's a controversial law because there are so many people in Pakistan which are against it, and there are so many people which are really support this law. Well, when Pakistan was first created, I think that our founder had a more secular approach towards politics. Especially, he didn't want religion to be involved with the matters of state, and he said it very clearly, and we still have it in record. But then we had, he died very soon after the creation of Pakistan. Like, Pakistan got independence in 1947 and he died in 1948. So we didn't have him around for a long time. So then other people came. We even had dictatorship for some decades. And then we had this person, his name is Zia-ul-Haq. He's also like an army officer, a dictator. And he was the one behind this extreme Islamization of the country, including the constitution. So there was talks about having a law which protects religions, since it was an Islamic Republic of Pakistan and Islam was the official religion or state religion of the country. There were talks about having such law, but it got its power during Zia-ul-Haq's time, and so you can say like around 1980s, like after that mostly. And even though it says that it's equally applicable to Muslims who commit blasphemy against non-Muslims, which are the minorities in our country, but most of the times people who suffer are the minorities, including Christians, and also the minority sects within Islam. It's also very interesting that most of the people who have been accused, there has been, I think, around 1,400 cases so far, and most of the people who were accused were actually Muslims. So it was Muslims accusing Muslims, and that's when I said also in the previous interview that people often use it for their personal matters or their business matters. Like, they have a personal query, and they would just blame you. And also because in this case it's kind of very hard to prove, because what is disrespectful is also it differs from person to person. What is disrespectful for you might not be as emotional for another person. But there are different there's a list of it, like what you can do, and I took some screenshots and I can share one or two, not going in really in details. So one of these is uttering of any word or making any sound or making any gesture or placing of any object in the side with the deliberate intention of wounding the religious feelings of any person. So it's a word, making any sound or making any gesture. And this is 1 year imprisonment. And then if you use derogatory remarks in respect of holy persons, then that is 3 years of imprisonment. So the list goes on, and if someone is really interested, in the audience, to know more about it, this information is easily available online because it's a part of constitution, and they are usually available. There are a lot of clauses of it, so I don't want to repeat all of these, but so yeah, between 1987 and 2017 there were 1,500 people who were charged with it. But here comes the interesting part. Not all of these people who are accused get their punishment from the state, because usually these kind of cases last very long because of lack of evidence. People are not carrying recorders all the time. So if you just say that I said something against your religion and to hurt you, how are you going to prove it? There is usually lack of evidence. and that's why these cases they last very long. So what some of the fanatics in our country do, they take these kind of cases in their own hands. They don't let the courts or the police decide it, because it's a sensitive topic and there's a lot of misinterpretation of religious teachings in this regard. So they would think that it's fair to hurt someone who is accused of blasphemy, and they would go and attack that person. And there have been like more than 70 murders. I'm not talking about state punishment, I'm talking about murders. Like people who would just go and kill such a person. And as far as these state punishments are concerned, I think there were like almost 80 imprisonments so far. Not a lot, but as I said, it's the people who make the life, or who can make the life difficult for the person who is accused of blasphemy. And I was also reading that often, even in the jails, they would allot a separate cell for people who are accused of blasphemy, because they're afraid that if they put an accused together with the other criminals would think that blasphemy is worse than their crime, and there's a chance that they would also attack or hurt this person. So it's, I mean, as I said, there are a lot of people who are against this law, again for those same reasons, because it is hard to prove and then people can use it for their personal matters. And in the recent years, one of the most popular case, or I would say, because that's the one that I was in my teens when that happened, it was, I think, in 2010. It's actually also been included in Malala's autobiography. She had also mentioned this case, because it was one of the really high profile cases which also attracted a lot of international media attention. So there was this woman, her name was Asia Bibi, and again, people who are really interested to know, like go deeper into it, can find this case online. So she was a Christian, and according to her side of the story, she just had an issue with one of the neighbors over in a field over water, but they accused that she said something against the Holy Prophet, or like they accused her of blasphemy. And then she was in prison for 8 years, and at the end she was released because of lack of evidence, and now I think she's in Canada, she got asylum. But those 8 years, first of all, you cannot return those 8 years to a person, and 8 years is an extremely long period of time. And then those 8 years also saw a lot of protests in the country and a lot of other events related to blasphemy. So one of the deadliest events related to this was that the governor of the province, who in 2011 kind of supported her, and he was also very vocally against the blasphemy law, he was murdered by his own driver. And if I can recall correctly, he got the bullet like 8 times, like he was killed with 8 bullets. And the person, his driver who killed him, was celebrated across the country. Okay, I won't say across the country, it's not right. There were a lot of people who celebrated him and thought that he did the right thing to kill a person who is supporting someone who is accused of blasphemy. Well, his driver, he was hanged, I think after 4 or 5 years. He was hanged probably in 2016. And as I mentioned, this Asia Bibi was released from prison in 2018, and she went to eventually Canada in 2019, but it only happened, I think, because there was a lot of pressure from international organizations. So that is all about like blasphemy law. And as I said, like more than states, it's also the people, which makes this law very dangerous. And also I remember this governor, his son was also kidnapped by Taliban, I think around 2011 or something, and then he was released after 5 years. So I think it gives you a picture of how extreme this law can take situation into, and how people jump in and try to take the matters into their hands. Because I remember once I was just scrolling, on Facebook, and under some post I did read that someone said that you should kill such a person. According to him, it was the teaching of religion, which I don't agree with, but yeah. So that's why I hope that they somehow remove it sometime soon. But I don't really see it happening. If I see things from a more practical point of view, I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, because we have a lot of right-wing or religious parties, and each time they talk about it, then they come on the roads for protest, and they won't really let it happen.